The purpose of this tutorial is to go over some practice exercises on, well, mostly quadratic, but some linear relations too. And in the first question, we're asked to classify each of these tables of values as coming from a linear relation, a quadratic relation, or some other kind we'll call neither. And we're using first and second differences to do that. So the first one here, I'm going to bring my calculator over here to do it. So we want the change from -7 to -3, and you should always notice in the x values they have to be changing by the same amount. So -2 to -1, 0, 1, 2, they're going up by 1, so that's what you want. You can't have them skipping different numbers of values. So the change from -7 to -3, you would enter the -3 number and subtract the -7 from it. Subtract -7. Now that's the same as -3 plus 7, so that turns out to be 4. So that's the first difference. The difference between -7 and -3 is positive 4. Then we go 1, take away the -3, so 1 subtract the -3 number. And of course that's also 4. 5 minus 1 is also 4, 9 minus 5 is also 4. The first differences are all the same. It doesn't really matter that they're 4. The fact that they're all the same means it's linear. Okay, the 4 actually has a meaning, another meaning, but we're not asked what that is here. So for the second one, and notice the x values are changing by 2 in this case, and that's okay still, as long as they're changing by the same amount. So we want to change from -1 to -8. So we would put -8 in first and subtract from it the -1. Now it's the same as -8 plus 1. So that works out to be -7 there. And then for the next one, we want to change from -8 down to -15. So we put in -15 first, subtract from it -8, and that's also -7. And you'll find that all the first differences, like even down at the bottom, -29, subtract the -22, works out to -7. They're all -7, so once again, it's linear. So for C here, and notice the x values are increasing by 1, so that's again what you want. So 1.5 and then 3, so we would take 3 and subtract 1.5. So that's 1.5. Maybe I'll clear my calculator here. And then 6 minus 3 is 3, 12 minus 6 is 6, 24 minus 12 is 12, 48 minus 24 is 24. Okay, so the first differences are all different numbers, so it's definitely not linear. And then we would go 3 subtract the 1.5. So 3 minus 1.5, so that second difference is 1.5. And then 6 minus 3 is 3. 12 minus 6 is 6. 24 minus 12 is 12. So now the second differences are all different, so it's neither linear nor it's quadratic. It's some other kind of relationship. We won't worry about what that is, just it's not linear and it's not quadratic. For D here, and again, x value is all increasing by 1. So we would go, clear the calculator, 2, subtract 3. So this 2 minus this 3. So first difference is -1, and then -3 minus 2. So -3 subtract 2. That's -5, and then -12 subtract -3. Oh, subtract -3. Okay, that's -9. I'll do one more. The first difference is -25 minus -12 minus the -12 is -13. So find all your first differences. They're obviously different numbers, so it's not linear. So now let's take a look at the second differences. So -5 subtract the -1. I'm doing the very first one up here. This minus this gives us -4. -9 minus -5, -9 subtract -5 gives you -4 again. -13 subtract -9. Let's see what that is. -9. And notice that they are actually all -4. -17 subtract -13. My calculator actually will work if I don't put the brackets in. It's considered probably good mathematical form to actually put them in, but that still works. See, they're all -4s, so the second differences are all the same, so this is a quadratic relationship. E, last one here. Now, again, the x's are changing by 1, so that's good. So I will go 27 minus 54 for the first difference, and maybe okay, that's negative 27. You'll clear the calculator. 8 minus 27, so 8 subtract 27 is negative 19. And then negative 3 subtract 8 is negative 11. Negative 6 minus negative 3 is negative 3. And negative 1, show the last one here, minus the negative 6 is positive 5. So first difference is all different, so definitely not linear. So now let's take a look at the second differences. So negative 19 subtract the negative 27 is 8. Negative 11 subtract the negative 19 gives you 8. And then negative 3 subtract the negative 11 is also 8. And 5 take away the negative 3 is 8 once again. So second differences are all the same. So it is a quadratic relationship. In question number 2 here, we're asked to complete some tables of values and then sketch the parabola. So the first one is y equals x squared minus 4. So we're given the x values in the question, and then we have to calculate the y coordinates here. So the first one, we're substituting negative 4 in place of x here. So I'm going to bring the calculator over again. And so we would be evaluating negative 4 squared and then subtract 4. So that's 12. You see, this is 16 minus 4 gives you 12. I've actually shown that in the calculations here. Negative 4 squared is a 16, and then take this 4 away gives you 12. So we bring that back up again, and I'm going to change this to a negative 3 now. For the next one, negative 3 is the next x coordinate. That works out to be 5. You see, negative 3 squared is 9. Subtract the 4 is 5. And then you put negative 2 in. So negative 2 squared is this 4 here. Subtract this 4 gives you 0. And then we put negative 1 in. So negative 1 squared is 1. Subtract the 4 is negative 3. And then we'll put 0. 0 is the next one. So 0 squared is 0. Take away 4 is negative 4. And then we start to see some repetition, because when we put 1 in, see, 1 squared is the same as negative 1 squared. See, that's a 1 this as well. So 1 minus 4, 1 minus 4, they're both negative 3. And then when you do the 2, 2 squared and negative 2 squared are the same. 2 squared is 4. Negative 2 squared is also 4. Remember, don't do this. Okay, that's not what that means. There you're actually squaring the 2 and then making it negative. That's why it doesn't turn out to be positive 4. So 2 squared is 4, subtract the 4 is 0, and then 3 is the last one. 3 squared is 9, subtract 4 is 5. So you can see the repetition again. There's a negative 3 here, here, 0 here, here, 5 here, here. If I'd done the next one, if I actually put a 4 in here, would have gotten 12 again. And so we would plot the points. So for example, I'll put this here. Negative 4, 12 would be this point right here. Negative 3, 5 would be this point right here. 2, 0 would be that point right there. Negative 1, negative 3, 0, negative 4, etc. So that's what the graph will look like for question B. Oh, sorry, 2A, not B. Scroll down here. So y equals 2x squared plus 1 is the next one. So the numbers you're given are negative 3 to positive 3. So you would substitute the numbers in. So put negative 3 here, square it, multiply by 2, and add 1. So that's the calculation here. Notice the negative 3 is going in place of x. So negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3. That's 9 times 2 is 18. Plus this 1 gives you 19. There's a plus 1 in the end. So next we put negative 2 in. And if you're doing this, maybe we'll bring the calculator over here. 2, actually it's, if you want to do it sort of piecemeal, okay, we're squaring the negative 2. I'm doing this one here. And then, see, that's 4. And then it gets multiplied by 2. So you do 2 times 4 is 8. And then we have, that's the 8. And then you have to add 1. 8 plus 1 gives you 9. So there's the 9. Nice thing about the graphing calculator is you can actually type this all in and evaluate them. So you see, negative 1 squared is 1 times this 2 is 2 plus 1 will give you 3. And nice thing with the graphing calculator is you can hit some function. Here it's just second enter, and it brings up the last calculation. So all I have to do is just change the -1 to a 0 now, and I can evaluate that to get that 1. And then I could do it again, change it to a 1 to get this 3 here. 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1, it gives you 3. So we finish the table of values, and then you plot those points. So for example, so this 19 is the y value here. So we would go over 3 and up to 19. That would be that point right there. -2, 9. So -2, 9 would be right here. -1, 3 is that point. 0, 1. So 0, 1's here. And then 1, 3. So to the right 1 and up 3 would be that point right there. And then 2, 9. So over 2 and up 9, point right there. And then 3, 19. So over 3, up 19 would be that point right there. And one last one, C here. So y equals -x squared minus 4x. So the numbers you're given are -5 to +1. And the reason they're not like the -3 to 3 is because this graph has actually been shifted over a little bit. Here the vertex is around the y-axis, but here it's been shifted over a bit. So that's why the table of values is shifted down a bit. So we're substituting, starting at -5 in place of x here. So there's the -5 in place of x, and of course it has to go here as well. Okay, so maybe we'll bring the calculator over here. So it's I'm typing this in here. So it's negative, in brackets, the -5 squared minus 4 times the -5. And that does work out to -5. You see, -5 squared, this is 25. If you square -5. And then, see, that negative makes it negative. So it'd be -25 right there. And you see, we have -4 times -5 is plus 20. So plus the 20 gives you that -5 there. So next we do -4. So -4 squared is -4 times -4. That's 16. And remember, this little negative here makes that negative. So it's -16. And -4 times -4 in the end here after the square is plus 16. So we have -16 plus 16. They're opposites. They add to 0. So that y value is 0. And then we do -3. So -3 squared would be 9. And that's going to make it negative. So that's why there's a -9 there. And this is going to be plus 12 because we're multiplying -4 and -3. So plus 12. So -9 plus 12 is +3. And then we finish out the rest of the, well, actually, you're going to start seeing some repetition here in a minute. If we do the -2 squared is 4. And then that changes it to -4. And, oh, I see I missed a bracket here. Fill that in. Bring the calculator back. That'll be a plus 8. So -4 plus 8 is 4. And then, you see, you start getting numbers to repeat again. So when we put the -1 in, -1 squared is 1. And then that makes it -1. So we have -1 here. -4 times the -1 we put in, that's a 4. So -1 plus 3 is 3. So notice we're getting the same y value again. When you put 0 in, you see 0 squared is 0. If you make it negative, it's still 0. Minus 4 times 0 is 0. So this is just 0 plus 0. So you get 0 again. Same y value is there. And then 1, similar again. So 1 squared is 1. That makes it negative. So there's a -1. And this would just be minus 4. -4 times 1 is minus 4. So -1 minus 4 is -5. So we plot those points. So -5 would be right here, that point. -4 is 0, so that would be that point right there. -3, +3, so -3, +3, that's the vertex right at the top. -2, oops, oh, no, I did the wrong point. -3, 3, but that point, the vertex is actually at -2, 4. -2, 4 would be there. -1, 3, so -1 at 3 is right there. 0, 0 is that point right there, and then 1, -5. So we go to the right 1, down 5. Right there is the point, and that would be graph number C. Last question here. Jeremiah has the following table of values and difference. Should we say differences? I guess, shouldn't we? With some missing numbers for a quadratic relationship. You asked to fill in the 4 missing values and explain how you arrived at your solutions. So here's a missing value here, here, here. There's a first difference and also a second difference here. So let's start at the top y value here, this one here. See, this negative 24 tells us that if we take this number and subtract 65, we get negative 24. So bring the calculator over here. So you see, I've taken this number and subtracted the 65 to get negative 24. So what I would do is I have to figure out what number that if I subtract 65 I'm going to get negative 24. Well, you see, what you can do is take 65 and subtract the 24. So that gives you 41. You see, if you're now let's just check that to make sure that works. Minus 65, see, is the negative 24. So this has to be 41. So when you subtract the 65 from it, you get a first difference of negative 24 there. So if I take this first difference, sorry, this y value, and subtract the 24 from it, I should get that value there. Similar idea here. You see, this number minus this number gives me 0. Well, it has to be 5 because 5 minus 5 gives you 0. So, of course, we can just show that. Find it. So this has to be a 5 here. Now onto the first difference. This guy right here. So this is actually the difference between 23 and 11. So we could just calculate that first difference. 11 minus the 23. So that number there would have to be a negative 12. So that's the missing first difference. And so if that's negative 12, you see this difference here is the change from negative 18 to the negative 12 here. So if I plug in my negative 12 and subtract the negative 18, that will give me 6. You're also told that it's a quadratic relationship. So if the other second differences are 6, then that should be 6 too. That's another way you could get that that's 6 there as well. So basically, that's the last of the questions. There are 3 altogether. So that's the end of the tutorial.